Nigeria's fiscal sustainability has come under the spotlight following a Bloomberg interview with Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed. The minister answered a question on debt restructuring, saying it was an option on the table being considered by the federal government.
Are there any plans to consider local or international debt restructuring at all?
It's an option we're looking at right now. We're currently working with the Central Bank of Nigeria to securitize the borrowings that we have had to make from the central bank itself. So that's one aspect. In terms of domestic borrowing, we have plans to just roll over some of the instruments that are crystallizing in 2022 and 2020. That is refinancing them and just rolling them over. But for the larger portfolio of debt, we have just appointed a consultant to make an assessment of how we can be able to get additional relief by way of restructuring and negotiating to stretch out the repayments to longer periods.
All right, Nigeria's dollar bonds declined yesterday after the interview was granted by the Minister of Finance. Dollar bonds maturing September 2051 were quoted at $57.06 on the dollar, down from close to 60 cents on Wednesday, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. Bonds maturing in November 2047 also quoted at 56.4 cents. January 2049, 65.2, both falling for the fourth day consecutively. 6 bonds from Nigeria offered at least 1,000 basis points over U.S. Treasuries. And U.S. Treasuries have been rising, which is a level considered to be distressed. The Debt Management Office put out a press release following the interview and the bond market reaction. The October 13th press release said the minister was quoted out of context. Okay. Joining us to discuss further, Sanyade Okoli, CEO, Alpha African Advisory. You're very welcome. I have to tell you, I absolutely love these macroeconomic discussions. It says the last 48 hours have just been incredible. What do you make of all this?
To be honest, the minister has come out to say, in response to a specific question, that it is an option that they're considering.
Yeah.
And personally, I do not understand what the furore is.
Yeah.
Simply because it would be irresponsible of the minister if they do not consider all the options available to them. Not least because, Reuters, let's call a spade a spade. We are where we are.
Yeah.
We know that revenues fall far short of what we need them to be. We know that we've borrowed a certain amount, both externally, locally, from central bank, government, etc., that need to be serviced. We already have seen, I think fairly recently, where debt service surpassed revenue for a particular period. The 2023 budget is forecasting debt service amount in excess of capital expenditure, because we've got to always remember to look at these things holistically. We know we need the capex spend to put the infrastructure in place to drive the growth that we require to grow ourselves out of the situation we are.
Yes.
But they're forecasting debt service in excess of capex and about 60% of revenue. In that situation, I ask you, Reuters, would you not consider
a restructuring?
Yes.
I would. Now, but here's the thing. I want to want you to see a tweet from, because there was a reaction on Twitter. Razia Khan, economist with Standard Chartered Bank. I mean, she jumped out and said there is nothing in the interview that Nigeria's finance minister did with Bloomberg that speaks to anything like a default. Well, no one said default, but I guess, she says Nigeria is not exploring a debt restructuring. And then she goes on to say that maybe she blames the interviewer. Said the interviewer asked a leading question, and then she says the finance minister then responded with details. And Kevin Emmanuel, he's an analyst that joins us often on the Global Business Road. Kevin Emmanuel said, and then he responded to Razia Khan. He says, Razia, securitizing Ways and Means, which is the debt from the central bank to the governor, central bank to the federal government, lending and converting it into debt stock that is a violation of the CBN Act is not restructuring? Really? I mean, so why is,
Let me ask a question.
Yeah.
Is the issue here substance or is the issue form?
Gotcha.
What word we use?
Right.
The substance is that I don't want to repeat myself.
Yeah.
Revenue, debt service, tension.
Right.
Got to look at what we've got to look at.
Yeah.
Let's, whether we call it restructuring or not, quite frankly, I don't see that as the debate.
It gets more interesting because I think about less than 24 hours later, she participated in a debate on the global economy with Kristalina Georgieva, the IMF MD, with Mark Carney, former governor of the governor of Bank of England and Canada. Let's take a listen to that. Richard Quest was the anchor of CNN.
I want to turn to Nigeria and the Honourable Minister. Minister, just listening to what the former governor was saying, that decisions, that the markets, the financial world will punish. Thank you, your words. Is Nigeria about to be punished for its high debt level, do you think, that will require you to restructure it?
Well, we're actually feeling the pressures. The market cost is too high for us, so we cannot even explore the markets in the near future. And also because inflation is going up and is going to stay up for longer, our debt service obligations in foreign currency are increasing. And what we decided to do is not to wait for it to happen. We have to start looking at how do we better manage our liabilities. For example, our domestic liabilities, we've been able to shift our loans from short tenors to medium and longer term tenors. We have to do the same thing for our international borrowings as well, bilateral loans and even some of the concessional loans, that the periods should be stretched to give us more fiscal room. While we are working to increase revenue, to improve on our revenue to debt service, we still need to be able to renegotiate and stretch out our repayment obligations to provide us with fiscal. So we are not restructuring our loans, but we're looking at options of how we can stretch out, including buying back some of our bonds when the market allows us to do that.
With respect, Minister, isn't that just playing with language? If you're doing all those things with existing loans, you are de facto restructuring.
But we're doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're doing it to give us more fiscal room.
The ministers, if I may.
All right, for the sake of time, Mark Carney jumped in, Kristalina Georgieva jumped in, and they seem to be defending her. She seemed to be in a bit of a word salad. What do you make of this all?
I think she's in her shoes. I'd probably feel a little cornered.
Yeah.
And she's trying to make her way out of that corner.
Yeah.
As I said, for me, the question is the word restructuring or isn't the word restructuring?
Gotcha.
For me, that's neither here nor there. What I hear her say is, we're feeling a lot of pressure when it comes to debt service. Not that we're about to default.
Gotcha.
But we are feeling pressure. The world is a big, bad place at the moment.
Yeah.
And we're looking at different ways to ease that pressure.
Yeah.
If we focus on that particular thing, then I don't honestly see why she should be attacked for that. And I think we've also always got to remember that that minister is responsible for fiscal matters.
Yeah.
She has no control over monetary policy, which, other decisions there could,
Right.
She has no control over, the oil theft, etc.
Right.
And so she can only work within her purview
Gotcha.
and the framework that she can influence.
Taking this all together, what is, you're seeing what's happening with another, in the UK, Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss, who I hear they're about to reverse themselves later this afternoon. Transparency, communication, and capital markets for government officials. What does this all say about the need to be, I guess, clear or, what do you make of it all?
If you think about it, capital markets are operated by individuals, by human beings. So there's a lot of sentiment involved. And a comment I keep making to you is a lot of it is about confidence. How confident am I in the people who are running the economy?
Yeah.
And they will make decisions on the basis of their confidence level.
Yeah.
So in terms of communication, your decisions and the communication of those decisions have to inspire confidence.
Yeah.
Otherwise, as was just mentioned, the market will punish you.
Right.
We see what's happening with the Nigerian bond market, and you could say that is, punishment for lack of clarity as to whether or not we are or are not going to restructure our debt. The other word that comes to me is humility.
Aha.
I think, unfortunately, with Truss and Kwarteng, they are given the tension, nerves are frayed, right,
Yeah.
at this time.
Yeah.
And they haven't been seen to display the level of humility that would be expected at this time when a questionable and significant decisions have been made. That is, it's not just affecting a few businesses or a sector, it is affecting the entire nation, especially poor people. Those are my thoughts.
I want to bring back a quote. Zainab Ahmed had an interview with our sister publication, This Day newspaper, back in November 2021. And she repeated something she had said that made headlines. Nigeria doesn't have a debt problem. What we have is a revenue problem. This is we kind of brought this back. Does that still hold true? Or,
I'm sure by now, Rotus, you realize I'm a substance over form person.
Yes, indeed.
And though I do like the use of words, I do love wordsmithing. I think let's play with words for effectiveness.
Yeah.
So she's right in that we absolutely do have a revenue problem.
Yeah.
We all know about the revenue problem, the oil theft, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But you cannot divorce debt from revenue because it's about how much revenue I have to be able to service the debt.
Right.
So if your debt doesn't match your revenue profile, then I'd say you have both a revenue and a debt problem.
How would Alpha African Advisory, if you are called upon by whoever the next president is, to advise on how to tackle this issue in 2023, how do they do it? Because everybody's saying there's a mountain waiting for whoever takes that mantle next year.
That is irrefutable.
Yeah.
So I think my first advice is face facts.
Yeah.
Don't pretend what isn't is and what is isn't.
Right.
Face the facts. 2, take an approach, a humble approach, recognizing that you do not know everything.
Right.
So seek wise counsel. But I said seek wise counsel.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, sometimes they seek poor counsel that worsens the situation.
Yeah.
Thirdly is make the main things the main things. We talk about subsidy, we talk about, FX rates, we talk about security, etc., etc. We need clear and effective policies on those, and they also need to be communicated accordingly. I mentioned about confidence. We want to know, as the entire population, we want to know that we can trust the people in government. And they need to give us reasons to trust them.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the policies, but it's about the heart behind the policies, about the communication of the policies, and the willingness to, and actually monitoring your policy, because if you're doing something and it's not working, you've got to be prepared
to walk it back.
Yeah, but if you put forward the policies humbly, then you can do a U-turn and still save face.
All right, I was about to say a Rise business analyst, CEO of Alpha African Advisory, Sanyade Okoli. Thank you so much for joining us. Fascinating topic. Thank you so much.